Hello, welcome to another Random Code stream. I am going to be working on this issue. This is part 5. This is one that's taken a while. So I've been spending the previous streams getting stuff done and changed and moved around and been making good, steady progress. So I'm going to hopefully continue that in this stream. Get my music going in the background, as I usually do. Okay, so one of the things I mentioned in a previous stream is this thing I ran into with defaults and like creating another method and stuff. And so I spent some time looking at what Rox does currently. And I'm going to have to spend time probably refactoring this, but I don't think it's an issue. More about just making sure the stuff shows up in the right place. So if you have a method or if you have an indexer property, all those really have methods underneath the scene for properties and indexers. So if you have optional arguments or params or whatever, what Rox does is, if I scroll down, you'll see that it'll generate a method for you to set expectations on and pass in the arguments as normal. But if you have default values, what it does is it'll generate another method with the optionals set as their real explicit values if you don't provide a value. And then what it does is it turns around and calls this method. So I just have to make sure that these are going to be generated correctly at the right spots. So that's really it. And it shouldn't be too much work. And also, when you do this, there's this transform thing, and I think that happens because these are also optionals. So I don't think it's a big deal. I'm not going to address this in this episode. Probably in the next stream I'll do it. But yeah, I realize I don't think it's going to be a big deal. What I'm going to do in this stream is work on explicit interface implementation, which again, Rox handles. We just have to, change how things are structured. So right now, if you have two interfaces that have the same member, essentially, and then you have an interface that derives from those, what Rox will end up doing is, if you look at the implementation on the mock, it does it explicitly because it has to, just to say which one are you calling. And then down here, you see it starts creating an explicit property expectations, explicit property getter expectations, all that stuff. Which we're going to need to do something similar, but not as involved, I don't think. So I think all we need to do is generate a class that says explicit for this interface name. And then within that, we take all the members that need explicit implementations and we just do the generation that we need to do. That's it. Nothing else changes. So yeah, that's what I want to work on in this episode. Stream, content, whatever you want to call it. So if I go back up to my builders here, let me go to Rock Builder. Wait, mock builder. I think this is now done-ish, so I don't have to worry about that. All right. So we've done the work to do methods, properties, and indexers. Now we need to do them for explicits. And we want something like this. One thing that is a bug right now in Rox, and I don't know how to address this. If Mitch watches this later, Mitch is somebody that's been helping me with rocks and some issues and helping out with discussions on things and whatnot. Lives in Australia, so sometimes the time doesn't work out right. But I think he watches some of the streams later. If he sees this, I don't have a good explanation or good answer to this. What happens if you have two interfaces that are in different namespaces but have the same name? If I generate a property named explicits or explicit for whatever for, and then I put the type name in here, how do I differentiate between the two? I can't put in a fully qualified name because that's going to have dots, and you can't use that for names. What happens if you have two types that have the exact same namespace in name? You have to use an alias to disambiguate between the two of them at the project level. So it gets to be, what do you do to disambiguate between the two? And this exists in rocks right now. If you ran into this, it would cause a generation error. So that would kind of suck. Though rare. Rare, though, always ends up biting me. But this is an issue I have right now, so it ends up getting down to, what would you put in here? What would your name be? I could use something like not a hash code that .NET creates, but like a hash code. I used to do this for certain things in rocks, for making something named unambiguous and repeatable. That's the other thing. Hash codes are not repeatable. It depends on how it's implemented, but like they can be different between different application runs. Actually, hold on. I gotta. Give me 1 second. I will use my computer over here. Okay. We have a plumber coming over today. We got to put in a sediment filter thing before our water softener. So they got to be doing some work this afternoon to do that. All right. So anyway, where was I? So I don't have a way to have a strategy around this. How do you disambiguate between two interfaces that have the same name, even fully qualified? Because that would suck. God, my beard is a little itchy this morning. I don't know why. Okay, so I think this gets all of the types that need explicit implementation, but we got to be careful here. You need to say type methods where method explicit equals yes. So we want to select those, and then we want to concatenate the properties where okay. So that should get us all the methods that need explicit implementation, their types. Same thing with the properties. And then we put them into a hash set. So that will automatically just get the ones that we need to do. Okay. So what we want to do here, excuse me, is this gives us the types. So now what we want to do is we want to say for each of our explicit type in explicits. And let's rename these explicit types. Because what we want to do is we want to create a containing class for these things. So indent the text writer right lines. No, wait, writer. It's like, why is it not doing that? Okay. So we want to do like an internal sealed class. Explicit for. And here we put in the explicit type name. I think just the name. I think if it has generics, that won't show up here, but I'm not sure. Okay, and then we're going to kind of do the same thing we just did here. And then we're going to say yes here. And yes here. Except here we need to say where the method is and the method containing type is equal to the explicit type. Oh, I never changed this up here. And I'll do the same thing here. And property dot containing type is equal to explicit type. Okay. Now, for the methods, well, we'll get back to that in a moment. We want to close this out. And to close this out, I think we just need to say, well, we do need to say writer indent. And then do minus minus, and then say writer.write line, closing it out, and then this might be something we can optimize a little bit to use group bys or something like that. But I'll leave that for another time. Okay, so when we generate this though, what we want to do is, I think, something similar to what we're doing in the properties. Which is, we need to have a We don't need a naming context here. We can just say parent. And then we need to have a constructor where we assign the parent to this. I think we have an internal so the constructor will take this and we'll say here this dot parent is equal to parent. Okay. Whoops. And then down here, we actually need to be a little bit more. We need to have a yeah, now we need to have a property that gets you back that thing. And I think, yeah, we can do something similar to what the properties do. So what we would want is this here, because that's what it's returning. And then we need that here is the name of the property, and we say get new this, that will pass in, because this is only going to be at the level of the expectations type. So it says new this, that passes it in here, we get in here. Now here we need to say this dot parent, but I don't think it's as easy as this. I think what I remembered last time is with the properties, it's always going to be this, but it doesn't even need that. For the expectations fully qualified name, I don't think it needs to be because we're setting up an expectations class for each indexer. We're not doing that for the methods. The reason we do that for the indexer is because actually, do we though? Yeah, we do. Okay. And the reason is because we're capturing all of the arguments. And with the method expectations, we do that directly. So yeah, we do need that. Okay. But I think for the methods that are being generated that are now going to be in this type, so I think internally is what it matters. But yeah, we do need to pass it in. We do. The reason why is because we need to say here, is it this or this dot parent? Now on this expectations type, it'll either be this or it's going to be this dot parent. You'll never have a naming convolution here. So we can drop this at this part. But for the properties, they're going to just need to know whether it's this or this dot parent. Okay. Same for the methods. So what we have to do here is say string expectations source. And we need to pass it in. And then here. And the reason why is we need to say here that. And then here we need to do that. It'll either be this or this dot parent. There. Now I think we're good. Okay. And this will always be this because this is the expectations type. Fun stuff. Good times. Now I think down below here when I was saying for defaults, that's where I was looking to say, is the thing that's being passed in explicitly implemented or not? Which is fine. We'll see what that does in a moment because we might need to clean that up too. But I think this handles stuff. So, does it build? It does. All right, well, let's go look at a implementation here. I have explicit implementation, explicit property setters, Let's do one with just explicit methods first. Okay, so we'll have left here, and we'll get rid of this because we don't really need it. We can just say string here. It doesn't matter. Get value, and then we'll do the same thing on the right. Okay, so then now the make again. Well, no, it's going to be different because it's different. It's a different implementation, so that's got to change. Okay. So what does this do? Oh, explicit method. Okay. I don't know why the first time you run, when you start up in Visual Studio, that it doesn't show you this right away. You have to do it like once, which is really bizarre. Let's see how bad it screwed this up. Okay, so we could put a space here. That would help. So that would put a space here, I think. Problem is that every time we generate the methods and everything else within it, we're putting this space always at the end. Spacing always sucks. So, if we look at the explicit for left, what I should do is also put a note in here, along with okay, so we say explicit for left, pass in this. That gets the parent. And the adornments are still 0. This now says this dot parent, which it should. And then for the right, we have a for right. When we do our handlers, we do the mock, which should be the same, 0 and 1. The adornments are down here. Yeah, so that looks right. And then we got to do the make. Oh, crap. It's going to complain because of space. That's fine. Let's just regenerate it. It's easier that way. At least I got the types right. The left and the right. I got the two that are unique. Way to go with quality. Between all the type references, that worked. That worked the way I expected it to. We would want also if we're generating a for each, we would want a space here as well. So we do there. We'd want there as well. No, wait. Like that. So at least that's cleaned up. Okay. Let's see what this does now. And where it fails. This should be the make now. What does it do? Failed. Why did it fail? Okay, so we got two diagnostics. Let's take a look at those. Type I left right creation expectations already contains a definition for explicit for left. So this is at 34. 32, 34, 66. Well. Oh. Yeah. I was being stupid. Okay. Expectations. 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 Okay. That should solve that. And then here, yeah. I knew I had to do that. I just forgot to do that. Boom. Pow. That all works. Look at this annoying little space line here, but it works. Now there is one in here with setters, so let's just change that and let's see what happens. Fails because we need to get the code. There's a lot of it. Okay, let's see what this is doing. Explicit for I left implementation. We get the parent doing that. Value property expectations. Huh? Oh, sorry. I was like, it's the... Okay. It took me a sec. I don't even know what my code is doing. So this is the parent here. So this. We then get a new value one, passing in the parent, but that parent is this parent. Okay. And then that's for explicit I left. Explicit I right has its. It also has a value. So you'd say explicit for I right dot value dot gets or sets. Two, three. Oh, now we gotta do the make. Why did I remove the make? That doesn't make any sense. Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Because again, makes don't change with all this work. Wait, where the hell did I go? Yeah, this one. Okay. Now what does this do? Fails. Why does it fail? Okay, again. Some naming thing. The type name value property expectations. This is on line 54. So if this is on line 545, 54 would be like 599. Wait a minute, we gotta start here. 570, 54. 624. And what is it saying? The type name. Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that would matter for the properties and the because now there's a intermediate type in between. So what the property is generating is this, and it thinks, oh, I just need to return that. Because it's trying to handle it itself. What we could do in that case is when we're generating the fully qualified name here, I don't think for methods it matters. Because methods don't have that set up. But here, I think we can get away with this by saying dot. And then we could say here var explicit expectation names equal to that. Whoop, jeez. And then we pass that in here. And then we do the same thing here. And then we do the same yes, here. Now, that should allow us just to plop that in there. Now if we come back here, that should do that. Hello. Wait, that's not what I wanted. Oh, it's going to do it here. That's where it's going to put it. Okay. Right. Yep. And then this should be for... Right, because that's in the vat. Yeah, okay. Let's see if that fixed it. Nope. What now? Wait, what did it do? Ah, crap. This still needs to be the expectations at the end of the day. That never changes. Shoot. But we need it to change here. Because that's the actual type name that's being returned. Sorry. So when we create... Wait, where did it... Where did it say the problem was? In the value property. Hello. Yeah, because it's trying to generate and it's using the... We need to specify the expectation name. That's this here, always here. That's never changing. But when we return something, we need to say what is the full name of what you're creating. And so we need to know I know what I need to do. I just need to think of what's the best way to do it. Hey, the Aussie. So for properties, we could have here we have the expectations fully qualified name. We could have the string expectations. Property expectations. Name. That gets passed into here. That gets passed into here. And that, okay, so now we can take what is being passed here, and that would be so we still pass in the expectations fully qualified. That doesn't change. It's down at the bottom here. That's the one spot where you put it. Okay, so now that breaks this. In this case, it's the same. Oh, and in the methods, it doesn't change at all. I think that's correct. Yep, that fixed it. That fixed it, so let's make sure we didn't break the method one that I just did. And that works too. All right. Alrighty, I think, well, at least for now, it seems like we have explicit implementations now handled. So what will happen, again, can't get to the point of showing all this just yet. What will happen is if we had an explicit implementation, because this has been the thing I've been using as a guide to get to the new way of doing things, you would see now expectations dot explicit for I thing dot no parameters, and then it just goes off from that point. That way it disambiguates, or it tells you, okay, for the type that you're giving me, it has to implement things explicitly. And so you can now say, I want to do an explicit, I want to set an expectation for a member on this explicit type here. And again, there could be a naming collision because there could be a naming collision. Where was it? I think I handled this last time. And I think I just did this. And naming collisions. A type could have a member the same name that is generated for an explicit implementation. It's possible. Highly unlikely, but possible. So in other words, what I'm getting at here is you could have just a property named explicit for iFoo, and then you're inheriting from two interfaces where one of them is called iFoo. And so what Rox is going to do is generate a intermediary property that says explicit for iFoo, and then you'd have those two colliding. So we would need like an explicit 2 for, having a naming context to make sure that we don't run into a collision with a member that exists on the mock type that we're going to try to create. But that's why I put it on my to-do list, because we will get to that point later on. All right, so I think at this point I'm going to end the stream. I think the next time I do a coding stream, I'm going to work on just ensuring that the default stuff is all generated correctly. I think it should, but we want to run through that and make sure that that works. Start doing some cleanup with how the code is being generated, and then also handle the naming collisions and make sure we have tests around that. And then we can actually start getting through the whole changing of the tests, because that's going to be a lot of work, and that's not going to be something I do on camera, because that's a lot of just cleanup work. And what I'm going to do there is, if I think I have confidence that the CodeGen tests build and there's no errors, then I can go through and start updating the integration and unit tests. That I would do off camera. And if I run into anything that I need to like do another stream on to show that work, I would do that then. But I'm not going to spend 2 or 3 hours on a stream just literally changing test code. That would be beyond mind-numbing to watch, I think. So I just realized I spelled assistance wrong. There we go. Okay, that was another step. I think things are still moving well. This to me is the big one right here. And I don't think it's a big one, but just if I can get past this one, I think we're going to start to see a light at the end of the tunnel that's not a train. So that's good. So I want to thank everybody who's been watching, either now or in the future. If you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please do so. I would greatly appreciate it, as I'm trying to get to 5,000 subscribers as my next goal. So any new subscription helps, so thank you in advance. If you have already subscribed, I appreciate you for doing that. Upcoming stream schedule, I will be doing another Hollow Knight Silksong stream tonight. That should be around 7 p.m.-ish Central Time, and also Thursday afternoon around 4:30 Central Time. I will probably be doing another coding stream maybe tomorrow morning, maybe Thursday morning. We'll see. We'll see how I feel. But with that, I am going to end the stream. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you in the future.